Delighted that the three of you have joined us, to say the least. Delighted as to all the great stuff that you're doing and going to continue to do. You know, my generation, as Jose said, has left the millennials with a mountain of debt, broken institutions, a culture of violence, financial crimes all over Wall Street, and a broken political system. Other than that, well, what's the problem?
What about when it's the baby boomer or the Gen Xer that's on the other side of the table and the millennial CEO is interviewing him or her? And that table is turning. And that's why I think it's so vital that we approach this from a standpoint of connection, not misunderstanding or not, well, you bankrupted the system, or you're entitled, or now we're tossing labels at one another. How are we really focusing on what needs to get done? I mean, it's easy to think that the most experienced person is going to be the person behind the desk, but that's not always true, because innovation doesn't come from what you already know. And there are internet companies that I could point to time and time again. Facebook is a quick example with Mark Zuckerberg. How did he study or gain the experience to become who he is? Now you could say, well, he took that idea and blah. I mean, there's a lot to the story, I get that. But my point is this: innovation is not age specific. And I think if we look at the differences, we're missing an opportunity to connect, and particularly to connect in terms of communication, because it is a well-known fact, and you've touched on it, that millennials have challenges in communication. And let me clarify that, because we have more ways than ever to connect, and so we connect, but we connect with our thumbs, right? I'm talking about that interpersonal connection. Harvard Business Review did a study that points out that nearly 70% of all managers across generations are uncomfortable talking to employees for any reason. Now, that's not a generational problem. That is something that is a societal problem. And we all owe it to ourselves to look at, I believe, the way that we communicate and we connect. Because, yeah, we have ways to connect, but are we making the connections that matter? And for folks who are watching this program in older generations, I think it's vital to approach the conversation with this understanding, so that there is an outreach, so that there's not a scolding, or let me take you to school. But it's an understanding that there is an expertise on both sides of the desk.
That's a good point. Now, Chris, if there were advice you could give to them and other millennials about dealing with older people like me, what would it be?
The same way that you want labels to go away, make sure that those labels aren't inhibiting you. And the diversity that I know that you value is something that you must, I believe, seek out. And as you find ways to make sure that your age doesn't get in the way of what you're saying and what you have to offer, so that you create the conversation that really focuses on exactly what you were talking about, which is the results that you can provide. And if we get lost in a discussion about the differences in our ages, or our tastes in the restaurants that we like, or the music that we listen to, are we really having the conversation that matters? Because when it's time to get down to business and it's time to get things accomplished, I think it's important to set aside our differences and find that common connection. It's not always easy to do, but that's where I think the real results lie.